So press play. Here we go. Okay. Oh my gosh. Hello from Half Moon Bay. Hi, Nancy. I just went there on vacation. Oh goodness, back in June, and it was really fun. First time there. Okay. So hi, Sheila. My name is Jennifer McManus, and I am one of the dietitians here at Pendulum Therapeutics. I'm a registered dietitian and a certified diabetes care and education specialist. So I'm really excited to be here with you guys. We're doing these Ask Me Anything. So we're doing 2 this month, which is super fun. We also have one really early on. I think it might actually be next week, early in August. And that's a really good one that you guys are not going to want to miss. We have a guest star coming on that one. His name is Chris Mason, and he's going to be talking all about poop, which is a super fun topic. So definitely tune in and wait for the email blast for that, because you're not going to want to miss that one. But today we're going to be talking about nutrition Mythbusters. So we're going to be going through some fact or fiction, and I've actually made this interactive, and I really hope that the poll feature works, but I'm going to be launching a poll, and you guys are going to actually be telling me if it's going to be fact or fiction. So you might have seen a social media post or an email that we were supposed to have another customer on to share her story. I was really hoping she could be here, but something came up, and unfortunately she will be unable to make it. But unfortunately, you guys are just stuck with me today, but that's okay. We'll get through and answer any questions you guys might have about the microbiome, nutrition, or any of these Mythbusters or our products. So this is a reminder that this is for you guys. I do have some really fun prepared content, but please feel free to ask any questions you guys might have. So we're going to go through some housekeeping today. We're going to do those nutrition Mythbusters, and then we will get to those questions. But like I said, feel free to pop them in and I will answer them as I see them. I do want to share that there are a lot of you guys on here and only one of me. So I'm going to try and get to as many questions as I can. If I do not get to your question, my email will be available to you at the end. It'll get sent to you in the Zoom email after this. So if your question doesn't get answered, I'm so sorry, but we will absolutely answer any question you guys might have in email afterwards. And I just want to shout out, we got some international people on the line. I have Giselle from Italy, and then I also saw Canada. So Tam is tuning in from British Columbia, Canada, which is on my list to go to. I really want to go to Victoria. So hello to you all. And then, okay, I see a question in the Q&A already. It says, when is the best time to take Akkermansia when fasting? This is really fun because I actually have a slide on this, so we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so here's some of that housekeeping. Just as a reminder, this presentation is being recorded. So if you come in late, or if you have to hop off early, or you can't attend any of our Ask Me Anythings, they will get automatically sent to you via Zoom. There's going to be a Dropbox link, and you'll be able to access that 24 hours after. So automatically, the email automatically gets sent 24 hours from right now. So you can always refer to this or share it with your friends and family. And then if you are new to Pendulum here, you can use this promo code Mythbuster for 20% off your first subscription order. I do want to highlight that this code does expire at midnight or 11:59 p.m. on July 31st. So make sure you get that, plug that in soon, share that code with your friends and your family to kind of get started with our products. And then here is our email. So nutrition@pendulumlife.com. You can send any questions you guys might have to that email. There's 5 dietitians on staff that will promptly, hopefully, answer your question pretty quickly. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us. And then I also want to give a special shout out to Jeff. So Jeff is an amazing member of our customer care team, and he will be here to answer any questions you guys might have, provide some additional customer care resources. And then I've also asked him to pop in some blog posts and some additional links that I've found that will also go along with the presentation. So Jeff is here on the line. So if you see his name pop up in the chat box, he's here from us. So thank you again, Jeff, for being here. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So what I want to do first is launch the poll. Oh, goodness. All right, first poll, or I guess quiz. artificial sugars and sweeteners help with weight loss, fact or fiction? And there's a lot of you guys on the line here, so I'm gonna wait a pretty second to allow you guys to answer. And you guys are all really, really smart so far. I am shocked. I'm gonna give it a second just because I think it's really fun from this point of view to see them trickle in, but I'm gonna give it one more. Oh, they're still coming. Okay, guys, I don't know where you guys are from, but well, I do know where you're from because you just posted it in your in the chat box, but let me share these results. 100% of you got this answer correct. I am really excited about that, actually. So you guys are correct. There's a lot of research out there that states that these artificial sugars and sweeteners may actually have increased cravings due to the brain's reward system not being satisfied. So it's kind of making this a counterintuitive, action. So artificial sweeteners also impact the microbiome. And I have a really awesome blog post that Jeff's going to share about the impact of sugar substitutes and sugar alcohols on our gut microbiome. So if you do, the reason why artificial sweeteners and artificial sugars got such a hype is because they're low calorie. So you think like low calorie, oh, that obviously will contribute to weight loss. It's just not always the case. If you do prefer, if you don't want to eat regular sugar because you don't want the impact on your blood sugar, or you don't love the amount of calories that might be contributed to it, I would recommend trying stevia or monk fruit. So give these a try. They're plant-based extracts, so they're more natural. They're also gentler on our blood sugar compared to regular sugar. And then, of course, if there is some product that has regular sugar in it, everything in moderation. Same with artificial sugars and sweeteners. Everything can fit. If there's something that you absolutely love that has these artificial sweeteners and sugars, or regular sugar, table sugar, definitely, don't hold back, because we don't, if you restrict things too much, you might end up craving it later on in the future. So and also a special shout out to one of my favorite chocolate bars. And if you soak with me before, you know how much I love it. Lily's chocolate. So she's in all different stores. There's a huge variety at Target, but you can get it at your local grocery store. You can get it at any health food store. Shane just said they are amazing. So yes, huge fan of Lily's. They have chocolate bars, they have chocolate peanut butter cups, they have chocolate covered almonds, they have chocolate chips. So if you're a huge baker and you make chocolate chip cookies, especially, I know my mom's already like, holy moly, Christmas is coming. So if you're planning on some baking, definitely give it a try. The reason why I love her so much is because she sweetens her products with stevia, so it's going to have a much gentler impact on our blood sugar, but she also fortifies her chocolate with a bunch of fiber, which is really, really great. It helps with satiety. Fiber is also the main source of food for our gut microbiome, so we're going to be feeding that gut in the process. And what's really my favorite part about it is I am a huge chocoholic. I need some sort of sweet to kind of end the day. There's so much fiber in it that I only need like a square or two from the chocolate bar, because it really does fill me up and satisfy me. So that's just a little plug for Lily's chocolate. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing this poll and move on to the next one. Let me just triple check. Okay. So Aaron says, so sugar alcohols are just as bad. I'm definitely going to encourage you to read that blog post, Aaron. I wouldn't say that they're bad. The sugar alcohols are, were created for a really good purpose, but the tricky thing with sugar alcohols I'm really hesitant about personally is I have a very sensitive stomach, and if I have too much sugar alcohols, I spend a little bit more time in the bathroom than I should. So just disclaimer there, if you tolerate sugar alcohols, totally fine, then absolutely they can fit into your typical eating pattern. I would just be mindful of how much of these sugar alcohols and artificial sugars and sweeteners that you're eating. The other thing to keep in mind is there's so much more research that needs to be done on artificial sweeteners, artificial sugars, sugar alcohols. We don't know everything about them just yet, but that's really cool. We're still learning. So I wouldn't say that sugar alcohols are bad, but there's definitely a section in that blog post that highlights sugar alcohols specifically. So check that out. Great. Thank you for your question, Erin. Okay. I am going to move on to the next fact or fiction. So probiotics that need to be refrigerated are far superior than shelf-stable probiotics. And here's our poll. Love to see this come in. Okay, we're getting some different answers here, which is really fun. I still can't believe 100% of you guys got that last question right. I thought I was going to stump some people, but we still have many questions ahead of us. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a second. We've had more people hop on, so I'm going to give them a second to answer, but I'm going to go ahead. If you have an answer, get it in right now because I'm about to end it. Okay, so we have about 40% of you saying that this is a fact, and then we have about 61% of you saying this is fiction. So I am going to give you guys the answer, and it is fiction. So it's not necessarily true. There might be some probiotics that need to be refrigerated that are far superior than maybe one that, you know, just has a bunch of dead strains that are present on the shelf. But it doesn't necessarily mean that all refrigerated products are more superior than shelf-stable products or probiotics. So what's really important to understand is that specific strains have different preferences. So some people prefer warmer weather, some people prefer colder weather. Same with these strains. These strains are also, bacteria are very delicate and they're very high maintenance. So specifically inside of pendulum glucose control, there's 5 strains. 2 of them are what I like to call problem children and are very high maintenance. They like those colder temperatures. That's why that pendulum glucose control needs to be refrigerated. On the other hand, GI repair and Akkermansia, they're not as high maintenance. They're do fine in those warmer temperatures compared to the refrigerator. Of course, we want to make sure we're storing all of your probiotics in a cool, dry environment, whether it's in your pantry or on you know, in a cool counter in your kitchen. Or in your bathroom, wherever you prefer to take it. But ultimately, the specific strains have specific benefits and that they've been backed by science. And that's what we really should focus on. It's the quality of the strains and which ones we know are going to do positive things for our gut microbiome. But as I mentioned, you know, these strains are fragile. They require a specific and stable environment because they can lose their viability if they're exposed to heat, oxygen, light, humidity. And one that's really important to highlight is that humidity or that moisture. So the reason why we encourage you to keep, you know, that bottle tightly secured, we don't want you to take out, even for GI repair and Akkermansia, while they are shelf stable, we don't really encourage you guys to pill load, or, you know, if you have the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we don't really want you to take it out of the bottle because that bottle helps with the moisture stability. We don't know the moisture of other pills that might be next to it. So it's really important, really, for all products to keep them in the bottle and keep that stable. Any questions about that? Let me see. So, Jamie asked if Akkermansia needs to be refrigerated. It does not. So Akkermansia, the one in the blue bottle, does not need to be refrigerated. So it fortunately does really well at room temperature. So you do not need to keep that one in the refrigerator. Okay. All right, I'm having some really great overall questions here that I'm going to get to, but I'm going to keep going on with these quizzes for right now. Let me check the chat real quick. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to stop sharing. I really loved the answers from this one. Maybe we'll get some other ones, some other balanced out answers here. Okay, next poll. All yogurts are good for your health, fact or fiction? Cindy asks, can you, while you guys are answering this, can you refrigerate Akkermansia? You can. It's not going to hurt it because there is Akkermansia inside of pendulum glucose control, and we ask you to keep that in the refrigerator. So if you prefer to refrigerate your Akkermansia only, that's totally fine. But just know it doesn't have to be. Okay, we are getting some differing responses here. I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Okay, so about 93% of you said this was fiction and 7% said this is a fact. So I'm going to say this is more leans toward fiction. The fact would be if, you have a really good quality yogurt, they're going to provide you with some good probiotics in your gut. So that's a fact, no matter which yogurt. They should be putting in those bacteria. That's what kind of makes yogurt yogurt. The fiction part of it is not all, there's a lot of added sugars specifically with yogurt. So I don't know about you guys. I live for going to the grocery store. I love it so much. I wish I could shop for every single person and my friends and family and just like deliver their groceries to them. That's how much I love the grocery store. However, the yogurt aisle is one of my least favorite aisles because there are so many yogurts out there that it's just really overwhelming. So I'm really overwhelmed and I do this for a living. I can only imagine what it's like as like a non-dietitian person to go to the grocery store and pick out a yogurt. So Jeff is going to be popping in two really awesome links into the chat box. So the first one is from a company called Eat This Not That. They have really fun articles, love going through their stuff. I don't necessarily agree with every single one on their list, but I definitely recommend checking out the top 5 of the yogurts they recommend. Those are the pretty good ones. I think they did like 1 through 20. So I don't really want the 20th best yogurt. I'd prefer going for the top 5. And then the other article was actually one that I just received in my email yesterday. So this is from a company called Diatribe. And if anyone in your family has diabetes, or if you have a history of diabetes, or you personally have diabetes, I definitely recommend subscribing to Diatribe's emails. They're really, really cool, full of really great information. I click through almost every link that they send, which is super rare for those kind of emails. But they just sent out an article that says which yogurt is best for people with diabetes. So kind of on brand with this presentation. But my number one recommendation would be when picking out your yogurt is one to start with picking the milk that you prefer, whether it's cow's milk, almond milk, oat milk, coconut milk, whatever one that you want to consume or you prefer to consume. That is where you should start. That's going to eliminate tons of different options. The other one I recommend doing would be the first and foremost would be looking at that added sugar line. And thank goodness this got added in the past few years. You'll see that if you just check out the stability, or excuse me, the new, I'm reading Jeff's answer as I'm going through. Turn it around, look at that nutrition facts, check out that added sugar line and try to pick the one that has the least amount of added sugar. I actually didn't do this when I went to the grocery store last week. I just grabbed a plain non-fat, Publix is the grocery store that I have, Publix brand vanilla yogurt, and it had like 16 grams of added sugar and I didn't even look at it. So that's not going to be the best option. Of course, the best option would be to pick a non-fat plain yogurt. That is not my favorite. I am not a huge yogurt person at baseline, but I don't think I could just eat plain yogurt. If you can, that's amazing. You can sweeten it absolutely with some berries on top and maybe even controlling if you want to put your own sweetener. I know Faye has those really cool ones where it has the plain yogurt and then you can control how much honey or how much fruit you can put in it, which I think is a really cool concept. I would say the top 3 yogurt brands would be Siggy's, which is an Icelandic skyr. And the reason why is they do really, really well with limiting their added sugar. And they also, since it's a skyr, it actually has a ton of protein. So it's going to keep you feeling full. It's going to help build that muscle. So Siggy's is going to be really good. Oikos, which is actually a Dannon brand. I didn't know that until yesterday. Oikos is another good one. So check that one out. And then Faye, which Jamie also says that she loves her Faye Greek yogurt. It's high in protein, low in carbohydrates. She says that she found out that some yogurts are thickened with stuff like cornstarch and sold as Greek. Yep. So it's really important to check out that nutrition facts label and the ingredient section to really know what you're consuming, especially in the yogurt section. But I think the best way to do it would be break it down by which milk you prefer, and then choosing the one with the least amount of added sugar. Tracy asked, what about kefir? Yes, kefir, same thing, similar rules. I know Siggy's has a really good kefir. There's a bunch of really good ones out there. I would pick the one that has the least amount of added sugar. Great question. And I read a really cool statement about skyr. So skyr is the Icelandic version of yogurt, and there's so many different versions. There's French, Australian, Icelandic, of course, American version. But Icelandic yogurt was actually created for Viking explorers. They relied on that skyr for energy and nourishment when they were traveling or farming. So because it's strained more than that Greek yogurt, Icelandic yogurt is even higher in protein. So choosing this option will keep you feel full for hours. I will say it doesn't break the bank compared to Greek yogurt in protein. So if you love your Greek yogurt, you can definitely stick with that. But if you're looking for 1 or 2 extra grams of protein, check out that skyr. Love, love, love Siggy's. I think it's a really, really great brand. Okay, moving on. Fact or fiction? You should take pendulum probiotics when you are fasting or on an empty stomach. Sorry, I'm having a hard time moving these things around. Okay. Fact or fiction? You should take pendulum probiotics when you are fasting or on an empty stomach. Tam just kind of gave the answer away, but thankfully he only sent it to the host, and so everyone couldn't see it. So I'm going to answer your question here, Tam, in a second. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a 1 second. I'm glad we have some different answers here. I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Okay, so very similar to the last one, 93% say this is fiction, 7% say this is fact. So I'm really glad I'm catching this for my fact answerers. This is fiction. So we really, really want to take pendulum probiotics, all of them, pendulum glucose control, akkermansia, and GI repair on when you're eating. So we definitely don't want to take it when you're fasting or on an empty stomach. And this is for a couple of reasons. Number one, we want to decrease the chances of GI upset. And then also, as you know, your stomach is very acidic. So when you take your probiotic with food, it helps to alkalize that stomach a bit. And then that capsule, so our capsules are, coated especially to make sure that it survives the acidity of the stomach. But when you take it with food, the capsule kind of gets trapped in that bolus to really ensure it makes its way all the way to your large intestine. So it has quite the journey to go. It's got to go through your mouth, through your esophagus, through your small intestine, and then all the way through your large intestine, because that's where these processes take place. So really, really important that we're taking them on with your meal. Tam asked, does ACK is to be taken with food and avoid fat? Does it have to be a full meal? Hard to avoid fat in my food with EVOO and nuts. Is that okay? Absolutely. So I'm not sure where you read that you have to avoid fat. There is some research about, high fat diet on the microbiome, which we will get into shortly. But you absolutely just want to take akkermansia with your meal. So I recommend, consuming it with as much as possible. There's no recommendation of how much calories or quantity of food, but we really want to make sure we're taking it with that meal time. That would be preferred. And I know I get this question a lot. Like I put, creamer in my coffee, or I put collagen in my coffee. Does that count? I would say if that's the best you can do, that's better than an empty stomach, but I would still encourage you to take it with your first full meal, whether that's breakfast, lunch, or dinner. The timing of it is not as important as that we're taking it with a meal. And then Tam says end of the meal must be best. Yep. So another recommendation I have is some people say like, oh, well, I'm going out to dinner. Should I bring it with me? If you're coming home after, I recommend just taking it when you get home, because your stomach is going to be full with food. So it's just easiest. You don't have to remember to schlep it and bring it, or take it at lunch instead of worrying about your dinner time plans. And then let's see here. Misha says, my doctor has me taking them on an empty stomach before bed. Guess I'll stop that. Yes, I definitely recommend, of course, educating your physician a little bit about what I just shared. And then, we recommend taking it with food. Tracy asked, what is the best prebiotic option to feed our probiotics? Great question. So inside of pendulum glucose control and akkermansia, there is inulin, which is derived from chicory root. So we know that these strains specifically love to eat inulin. So that's a really good prebiotic option. But really, any prebiotic is going to be beneficial to feeding the probiotic, and fiber is going to be your best friend. So whether that's vegetables, garlic, onions, leeks, all really great sources of prebiotics, and really just all fiber in general will be the best options to feeding all of those good bacteria. Tracy asks, what about kombucha? So kombucha doesn't really fall under the yogurt. If we're kind of going back to the yogurt, my kombucha can provide some really, really great probiotics. My only concern with the kombucha is they're typically full with a bunch of added sugar. So especially those like big ones, just keep in mind how much you are getting in or how much you're taking on a daily basis, whether maybe you could half it. If you really love kombucha, that's awesome. You're definitely promoting that diversity, but just be more mindful of the added sugar and maybe try to find one that has the least amount of added sugar. Jamie asks, what about kraut and other fermented foods? Yes, big fan of sauerkraut. My husband thinks I'm crazy. I just have a bag of it and I just eat out of it. It is so good. But those fermented foods are also going to contribute to that diversity. Same with that kombucha. Great question. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. There's some really great questions. I feel like I could just sit here all day going through them. But I'm gonna move on to the next one. Okay, stop sharing. Fact or fiction? Natural sugars such as honey, agave, nectar, maple syrup are better for you than regular table sugar or high fructose corn syrup. While you guys are answering, I will answer this one. Giselle asks, what is it best to think about the difference of prebiotic versus probiotic? Great question. So prebiotics feed the probiotics. So prebiotics are just usually different food sources, such as garlic, leeks, onions, different fiber-filled foods, inulin, chicory root. And then the probiotics are actually those good gut bugs. So inside of pendulum glucose control, there's those 5 beneficial bacteria. Those are the probiotics. So think of prebiotics as food for the probiotics. Yeah, great question. Okay, perfect timing. You guys just answered. All right, so this answer I love. So you guys are kind of split. 58% say fact, 42% say fiction. And honestly, I think this could go either way. I think when you get down to it, of course, honey, agave, nectar, maple syrup are going to be better for you. They're more natural, they're not as processed than table sugar and high fructose corn syrup. However, I don't want you guys to think, if you're getting an ice cream that says, oh, it's sweetened with honey, it's going to be infinitely better than the ice cream that's sweetened with table sugar or high fructose corn syrup. And that's because it's still going to impact our blood sugar. It's still considered added sugar. It's still going to contribute to those calories. And I already said this, but I'm gonna say it again. It's still going to impact that blood glucose. So really, your body doesn't know the difference between these sugars as well as we do. So it's going to get broken down the same way. Your body still recognizes this as sugar, and it cannot really differentiate between the two. So it's going to impact your blood glucose levels similarly. And this is actually something really cool that you can do if you wear a continuous glucose monitor, or if you prick your fingers, you can kind of play around and see yourself what these different sugars are doing to your body. There's a good chance it's not going to be super drastic. It may be plus or minus 5 to 10 milligrams per deciliter. So I don't think it's something worth screaming about, because it's still going to impact our blood sugar. I also like to discuss other sugars that are maybe found in fruit. So fruits, when you break it down, if fruits didn't have vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and fiber, it would also be fructose or sugar. But fruit does provide other health benefits in comparison to the honey, agave, nectar, maple syrup, table sugar, etc., because of its fiber content. So blackberries, raspberries, and pears, those are 3 of the highest fiber fruits out there. So they're going to have a much gentler effect on our blood sugar. Fruit is also going to be lower in calories than some of these other naturally sweetened sugars. And they're also going to have antioxidants and polyphenols, which is awesome. And we do know that polyphenols are beneficial antioxidants that have been shown to help increase the Akkermansia abundance in our gut. So if you're taking Akkermansia, we want to make sure we're fueling it with those polyphenols. As a reminder, it'll be a lot of your dark fruits, so cherries, blackberries, really great sources of polyphenols, olives, all different types of like herbs and spices that you would season your foods with, rosemary, sage, really every single seasoning or spice or herb is going to have some type of polyphenol containing properties. But my favorite polyphenols to talk about, which I think somebody asked an alcohol question on here, I think they asked about wine, so hopefully this answers, is red wine is a great polyphenol source. So of course, consuming alcohol in moderation, as we do know that alcohol can negatively impact our microbiome if we're drinking too much, of course. But there is a lot of research out there showing the antioxidant polyphenol properties in red wine. Another fun one is chocolate. Chocolate contains polyphenols. And then coffee, which is a common favorite amongst us. And then my favorites are also black tea and green tea. Are going to be some good polyphenols. So circling back to the topic, choosing your sugars wisely, of course, but really just making sure we're consuming them in moderation and not having too much of that added sugar. I feel like we talk about added sugar all the time, but then also keeping in mind how great that the natural sugar found in fruit, because of its other benefits like the fiber and the polyphenols. Richard says, I need to leave. How will I be contacted on my questions about blood sugar and peripheral neuropathy? Richard, you're going to get a recording of this webinar, but then also you're going to receive an email automatically sent to you from Zoom with a link to my email. And then also you can email nutrition@pendulumlife.com. So please feel free to shoot us over an email with your questions if you do have to hop off right now. Thank you. Okay. Ginger asks, can you use an HSA account to purchase Pendulum? Great thought. So yes, but I will say the system doesn't recognize, you can't use the card. So you can submit for reimbursement. So you will have to use your own credit card or debit card, and then you can easily access the receipt through the My Account feature. We're actually launching this really cool. You just log into your account, you can print out that itemized receipt and then submit for reimbursement. But yes, it is recognized from HSA and FSA. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing and move on to the next one. All right, we have 3 more. You cannot travel with pendulum glucose control, fact or fiction? While we're going, Tam asks, are you going to extend shipping to Canada? I ask this almost every day, Tam. I want us in Canada so bad. You guys are so close. I do know it's in the works, but as of right now, it is not, but hopefully very soon. And I'm sure you will get all the notifications when we are able to ship directly to Canada. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. So 91% of you said fiction, which is the correct answer. You can absolutely travel with your pendulum glucose control. We've done extensive testing on the viability of these strains at higher temperatures. So we know that these strains are okay at room temperature for up to 7 days. After that 7-day mark, they tend to lose a lot of their efficacy and viability. So if you accidentally leave it on the counter, it's totally okay. Just pop it back in the refrigerator the next morning. Same thing with traveling. So just making sure you're traveling in the bottle that it's in, tightly secured so no moisture can get in. I recommend popping it in your carry-on or your purse or your briefcase. Don't leave it in a hot car, of course. And then once you reach your final destination, just pop it back in the refrigerator. I will say, don't forget to take it home with you. That happened to me once, and they called my brother and they're like, what is this in the refrigerator? Because my brother's phone number was on file. He's like, I don't know. I'm like, no, that's mine. Don't throw it out. So yeah, don't don't forget to take it with you, but you can absolutely travel with pendulum glucose control, and we of course encourage it. Okay, I see a fiber question on here, which is one of my favorite questions. We do have a fiber slide coming up, so I'm going to save that and move on to our next question. The question is, keto and intermittent fasting are superior for weight loss. Fact or fiction? I love seeing these come in, guys. It's so fun from this point of view. Okay, I'm going to end this poll. So this is pretty split, almost pretty split. So 56% say fiction, 44% say fact. So I will go with the caveat that if intermittent fasting and the ketogenic diet work for you, and you have decided with your healthcare practitioner that this is a good plan and it's working, by all means, I'm so happy to hear that. Everybody is different. Everybody does well with different eating patterns. Everybody responds differently. So if this works for you, amazing. There's not enough research to say that these two are superior for weight loss. So the ketogenic diet was actually created for people with epilepsy. So people who suffer from chronic seizures, the ketogenic diet actually helped to reduce the amount of seizures that these individuals were having on a daily basis. It's become super popular because of its benefits. It can help with blood sugar because, of course, you are not eating as much carbohydrates. So if those of you who aren't familiar with these eating patterns, a ketogenic diet is a really high fat, low carbohydrate diet. And then intermittent fasting became super popular during COVID. And I think it makes sense because it was easy to follow during COVID. So intermittent fasting is basically, you go through different eating, patterns of eating and not eating. And there's many different ways to do it. The most popular way is, fasting for X amount of time, and then you have a certain amount of time for eating window. But if you think about it, we've been fasting our whole lives, right? Breakfast actually got its name because it's break fast. So I think this became more popular because they wanted to shorten that eating window. Of course, by having that smaller eating window, it can help reduce the calories you are eating because you are eating less frequently. I would say the trickiest part about both of these diets is they're hard to follow long term, especially the intermittent fasting. If you are, if you like to be social, you like to go out, like, are you going to go out to dinner and just kind of stare at everybody if it's not within your eating window? So that's why I think it became really easy to follow during COVID. And then I've seen it kind of fall off a little bit after COVID. So really the long-term sustainability aspect of any diet or eating pattern is the most important, something that you can stick with, because kind of yo-yoing between each diet isn't gonna help. But let me see here. Missy says, depends on the keto, high fiber versus all cheese and junk. Great point. So the other problem or challenging point with the ketogenic diet is, since it is so high in fat, it's also really low in carbohydrates, which means we are going to not be able to get in all that good fiber that we need to improve our gut microbiome and overall gut health. So we really want to make sure that if you do keto, and I have a lot of customers that do keto, and we kind of find a way to figure out how we can get the fiber in without breaking the bank from a carbohydrate standpoint. So ultimately, there's a lot more research that needs to be done on the long-term impacts of the ketogenic and intermittent fasting, but I wouldn't say it is far superior for the weight loss perspective. Shane says, get your hands on that Lily chocolate to get some extra fiber. Exactly. Misha, okay. Misha says, these are not necessarily good things for someone with my pre-existing health conditions. Exactly, yep. So Jamie does keto, still eats green and veggies and natural fats, which is awesome. There's definitely a way to balance it out and do it. So like I mentioned, if this works for you, I love it. But it can be challenging. Thank you all for sharing. Gonna go on to our last one. Okay. Fact or fiction? You cannot eat too much fiber. Okay. We are almost perfect. Okay. I'm going to end this poll and share the results. So 85% say fiction, 15% say fact. So I would say, I personally am in the camp, the more the merrier from a fiber standpoint, but there definitely is a tolerable upper limit, and it's going to really be dependent on you. So Jeff just popped in this really awesome blog post that kind of shares how much fiber you personally need. And this is just a recommended allotment. It depends on your age and your gender, but it's usually somewhere between 21 to 38 grams per day. There is some research out there that I've read that says 50 grams of fiber is recommended for ideal blood glucose management, but ultimately the balance is going to be what you can tolerate. So it's natural when you eat fiber to have some sort of gas and bloating, but it shouldn't be debilitating. So that's kind of when we look at like, okay, are we eating too much? I did actually work with two middle-aged men recently who stated that they've been suffering from an increase in gas and bloating. And really after analyzing their eating patterns, they were eating upwards of 80 to 90 grams of fiber each day. So that's too much for them. Some people might be able to tolerate that, but I would say it's rare to tolerate that much fiber. Another story I will share is, it's really important that we're starting out slow. So fiber is not a huge part of your diet. And as a reminder, it's going to come from sources such as fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, peas, seeds, other legumes. If you're not used to getting in fiber, and it's not typically popular in the standard American diet, right? We usually have higher fat, higher sugar, and very low fiber. So if you're kind of starting out with prioritizing that fiber, we want to make sure we're going slowly. If you're getting in, 10 grams of fiber on a typical basis, you don't want to go from 10 to 38 grams overnight. You're going to spend a lot more time on the toilet than you want to, and you're probably not going to be very happy with me. So it's really important that we're gradually increasing our fiber intake over time. And if you tend to be more sensitive, it's important that you're taking this slowly. There's no rush, right? We don't need to go to 40 grams tomorrow. So really making sure we're balancing out what you can tolerate and at the speed that you need. Also, one more thing to keep in mind is as you are increasing your fiber intake, it's really important to increase your fluid intake. So we really want to make sure we're getting enough fluid in to help keep things moving throughout your GI tract. And again, the reason why we talk about fiber so much is it's the main source of food and fuel for our gut microbiome. So we want to make sure we're feeding those strains inside of pendulum, glucose control, akromansia, and GI repair fiber so that they will do what we want them to do and they'll stick around and hang out with us. Any questions about fiber? I think I saw one. How did they get that much fiber? Oh gosh, great question, Erin. I would say a lot of beans. I know one of my customers was doing like over 3 cups of beans per day. So it obviously depends on the beans. A half cup of beans can have anywhere between 5 to 10 grams of fiber. So if he's eating 3 cups, let's say it's average 7, 14, 28. Yeah. So he was looking at like, almost 45, 50 grams of fiber just from beans. And that was just, just from the beans. Erin says she's trying to hit, okay, you're trying to hit 38 grams a day. It's really hard. So there's some really great tips that I can share. Some of my favorite easy ones, if you're a fan of chia seeds, that's a really, really just easy one to get in. You can mix it in with your yogurt. We talked about yogurt. That's an easy one to mix in. So 2 tablespoons of chia seeds have about 11 grams of fiber. So that's about 1/3 of what you need just in the chia seeds. Avocados, really great source of fiber. Artichokes, I know that's like such a random vegetable, but one medium-sized artichoke also has 11 grams of fiber, especially in the summertime, super fun to grill up. and enjoy. And just a little caveat, be careful if you're having it as an appetizer, it's going to fill you up because of all that fiber. So you might not want your entire meal. So be mindful of that. Beans, seeds, nuts, all really great sources. And then as I mentioned, blackberries, raspberries, and pears. Those are 3 of the highest fiber fruits out there. And then apples and blueberries are not far behind. Great. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, let me see here. Would you use an over-the-counter product to add in your coffee if you are in a pinch? Tracy, do you mean over-the-counter fiber? Like a benefiber, or like a, what's the one that's orange? My dad used to take it. Metamucil, like that. Is that what you're talking about? Benefiber. Yep, yeah, absolutely. Those are, I typically recommend getting in your fiber through whole food sources first. And then if you do have trouble getting in that fiber, you can absolutely supplement with benefiber, Metamucil, or whatever fiber you prefer. Lori says Catalina Crunch cereal has 9 grams of fiber and 11 grams of protein. Stevia is the sweetener. Great recommendation for Aaron to get in some extra fiber. And then of course, how can we forget Lily's chocolate? That's an additional 9 grams there if you have a third of the bar. So really a lot of fun ways to get in that fiber besides some mundane, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, etc. Thank you for sharing that, Lori. Okay. I think I answered the alcohol question. Does alcohol influence akromansia? Is it best to wait to take them if you've had a drink? So we do know that alcohol does impact our microbiome as a whole. I wouldn't recommend taking the akromansia with a glass of wine, but if they're spread out, that's totally fine. If you're usually, if you're drinking alcohol by itself, absolutely do not take the akromansia with it because you don't have any food anyways. But if you're, having a glass of wine with your dinner and you typically take the akromansia at that dinner time, it's totally fine to take it. Just rinse it with your water instead of your drink. Thank you for that question. Okay, Tanya Cranshaw, thank you for your question. Should you rotate your probiotics? This is a very popular topic. So there's, of course, different research out there for different probiotics. I can speak to our products. There are 2 types of bacteria strains. So there's colonizing strains, and then there's bacteria strain, or excuse me, of course they're bacteria. There's transient strains. So transient strains are the ones that if we don't continuously introduce them into our microbiome, they will eventually disappear. So we know from our clinical trial, we had our participants with type 2 diabetes take pendulum glucose control for 3 months. After that 3-month mark, we asked them to stop taking pendulum glucose control. And then 4 weeks later, we tested their stools or their microbiomes to see if these strains were still present. 85% of our participants had at least one of these strains missing from their gut. And there was no consistency. It wasn't just like everyone was missing X strain or Y strain. It was all over the board. So what that tells us is that these strains are transient strains, meaning if you don't continuously introduce them into our microbiomes, they will eventually disappear. So with that being said, we do encourage you to continue to taking them. But what we don't know is if you take pendulum glucose control for 6 months, for 9 months, for 3 years, will they eventually become colonizing strains? We don't have the data on that yet. It's something that we can hypothesize, but we just don't know. What we do know is after 3 months, we know that they will die off. So I hope that kind of answers your question. Okay, Boyce asks, vitamin infusions have become very popular. Are there ones you believe benefit gut health? I'm going to be honest, Boyce, I am not very well educated in the vitamin infusions. I know that those IV lounges have become super popular, but I personally do not know enough about them to speak to them. I don't know which different mixtures they offer that would benefit gut health. So I know that they have to have like a nurse practitioner or a nurse or a doctor, at the facility. So I'm going to defer that answer to them. I'd recommend, chatting with them to see if they have any formulations that would benefit gut health. and what research they can provide you as well. Okay. Boyce also asks, do you think a GI panel test / stool test is a good idea for those who have an unhealthy gut? This is something that I've actually spent a lot of time in the past couple of weeks looking into. I just watched a really, really cool webinar last week, and it was from he was a dietitian, but he also had his PhD. I believe he worked, oh, I'm gonna butcher, I don't know, maybe Wisconsin or Minnesota. He was a professor there, but basically how he explained it is, you know, there's all these commercial stool test companies that you can purchase tests from. You send off a sample of your stool and they can, you know, send the results back to you telling you what's going on. I personally think the research is very premature. I don't know if we fully know what to do with it. I also wonder if you send the same stool sample off to, you know, 10 different stool companies, will they come back with the exact same results? I don't know. They all have different assays. They all have different sensitivities. It's really tricky. The cool thing, so there's two ways you can measure your microbiome. One of them is through the lumen, which is what these stool tests do. But that doesn't really give us the full picture of what's going on in our gut, because there's also a whole, you know, microbiome in that mucosal lining. And the only way to really test that mucosal lining is through a biopsy. So that's obviously an invasive procedure. You have to be put under, whether it's colonoscopy or endoscopy, to biopsy that the mucin layer. So the lumen is what actually is what's tested when you do a stool test. So I'm going to encourage you to discuss with your healthcare provider to see if they think it's a good idea for you to get your stool test before you spend all the money on it, because they are expensive. If you do want to do it, my recommendation, there's a really great company called Diagnostic Solutions. They have a test called the GI map test, and it does require a physician to order it, but their assays are really sensitive. So they tend to detect more in depth of these strains. Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff. He popped that in there. Okay, get through. Somebody asked, which of your products do you recommend for overall gut health? How about to fight fatigue? So we don't have any research showing that any of our probiotics specifically help fight fatigue. So that's not something that we've measured, or is it a claim that we can make? But I would say for overall gut health, you really could go either way. My personal favorite is pendulum glucose control, and that's because there's 5 strains inside of it. So you're going to get, you know, overall like more diversity by having more of those strains. But Akkermansia and Angio Repair are also really good products. I personally take pendulum glucose control because of the diversity that comes with that. I do not have a history of diabetes in my family. My A1C is within normal limits, but I do love all the research specifically about all the different strains that are inside of pendulum glucose control, just for overall gut health. So that's actually the reason why I take it, more of a preventative aspect, kind of getting my microbiome in a good spot. I do have a family history of inflammatory bowel disease. My dad has ulcerative colitis, so trying to get my gut in a good spot to hopefully prevent any future IBD diagnosis personally. Again, we don't have any research showing that these help specifically with inflammatory bowel disease. There is some secondary research out there showing that people who do have a history of inflammatory bowel disease are actually lacking Akkermansia, and there is Akkermansia present inside of pendulum glucose control. So there's still so much to learn. You can get down a rabbit hole, honestly, if you Google, you know, if you go into Google Scholar and just Google all of these strains, you will be stuck there forever learning. It's really, really cool. Okay, what time is it? Perfect. We have 4 minutes left. I'm going to go through. Okay, Cindy says, I got diarrhea from Akkermansia. Is this common? Should I only take part of the capsule? First off, thank you so much for sharing this. is as common. I wouldn't say it's a common side effect, but it's not a shocking side effect. It is typically when you start any probiotic, you do have the chance of having GI upset. It's usually in the form of gas and bloating, but sometimes it could be, everyone's different. Some people are more sensitive. It could become in the form of more loose stools. Cindy, I will reach out to you afterwards just to gather some more information, but I will say, I would recommend not pulling the capsule apart because we don't want to expose those bacteria. We want to make sure that it stays inside the capsule because that's what really helps make it way all the way to your large intestine. I would recommend, instead of taking it daily, space it out, and then also making sure you're taking it on a full stomach. So if you got diarrhea, if you were taking it every single day, we want to space it out and make sure we're working our way up to tolerate it. But we can also speak more to that offline. Okay, so I think I might have answered this question, but what is the best time to take the Akkermansia when fasting? So the best time to take this is when you are breaking your fast. So with that first meal. So if you have a really small eating window, if you have a 4-hour eating window, you can take Akkermansia, in that eating window. Oh, I never shared the results of the fiber one. Sorry, guys. This was the results of that fiber. Okay, since we're wrapping up here, I'm going to move on to that last slide. I do see some questions popping in here about this. So this presentation is being recorded, so you will get a copy of this if you popped in late or you had to leave early. You will get the recording or the link to the recording sent to your email. It's going to come from Zoom, so make sure you look for that link. It doesn't come from me, it comes directly from Zoom. And then also remember to use that promo code Mythbuster for 20% off your first subscription order. So this works on all of our products, only works on your first subscription order. Just remember that this code does expire on July 31st. So today is, I believe, the 27th. Yep. So we have 28, 29, 30, 31, 4 days to get this code and use it. So share it with your friends and family and absolutely use it for yourself. And then I know there's a lot of questions I did not get to. This was really, really fun. I loved how interactive it was with you guys engaging in the polls. So unfortunately, I didn't get to everybody's question, but if you did not get answered, please shoot us over an email, nutrition@pendulumlife.com. My email will also show up in the email that you guys get from Zoom. You can email me directly. But as I mentioned, there's 5 dietitians here to man that nutrition@pendulumlife.com email. So I really, really thank you all for being here. Tracy says, thank you. It was also delightful to see your dog behind you. Oh, well, thank you so much. He is right here taking a nap. He went to camp yesterday, so he's very tired. So thank you for welcoming him. Thank you all for being here. Hi, Carol. Thank you. Thank you all so much. You look at the recording, and thank you again to Jeff for being here. Really appreciate it. I hope you all have a great week, and I hope to talk to you guys soon.